Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on what part of the world you are in. This is I'm Kevin Coyme, and this is the Venture Outfitter Weekly. And welcome to everyone. We have a good studio audience today, as well as I know that there's a lot more people that are getting to watch the streams of what's going on. I'm excited to have you here. Let me hop right in by remembering to share my screen. And today we're going to talk about innovation, Skunkworks, and getting cozy with corporates. And I'll tell you a little bit more about that. But first off, welcome to the Venture Outfitter. Whole purpose of the Venture Outfitter is to work with you in helping you build your companies out and things like that. And so the main thing that I want to make sure that we do is talk through kind of the different things. Well, over the last 2 weeks, we've had this series where we're talking about what do you do when they're in a down economy. And so today's focus is going to be about how entrepreneurs can take advantage of the down economy and actually have it be a stronger way to engage. First off, thank you to Linda Blackman and the team at Dualworks. Linda Blackman is a long-term tech rancher. She has just come to me and actually said that here in Austin, in October, we're going to do a Venture Forth alumni group get together. Actually, you don't have to be in Austin. I mean, you should be in Austin to come to the get together, but you don't have to have gone to Venture Forth. If you haven't gone to Venture Forth, but you've had a tech ranch relationship, whether it's just of 2 weeks or longer, and some of you had relationships with the tech ranch for more than 15 years. We will be doing this in October. I do not know the dates. I know it's not going to be October 1st to the 15th, but the dates will be coming out pretty quick. Myself and Jello will get with Linda and we'll pick this out. But out of that relationship, part of what's happened is Dualworks is this co-working place. It's actually the co-working place that I originally started, but then sold to Linda and one of her team members. And they really they really cater to tech ranchers, whether you're here in Austin and you need a co-working place or a closed door office, or you need a mailbox, you have a point of presence in the country, in the United States, they can handle all that sort of stuff. And if you go through us, either through that URL or mention Tech Ranch, you will get a discount on top of their low prices. So make sure you do that. And if there's any questions, this is the sort of thing that would be really great to follow up through. You can follow up with me directly. Sometimes Jello is a little bit faster, so can reach out to him as well. Coming soon, we're going to be talking about the electrification of mobility and some of the projects that Chris Nielsen, who's a long-term tech rancher, has been doing with the U.S. Department of Energy. Who is Chris Nielsen? He is, other than just a Venture Forth grad from way back when, he is the gentleman who's run the largest fleet of electric vehicles outside of the U.S. government. He happens to be focusing on last mile transportation issues. And one of the great things about the way his operation is set up is he's partnered with the U.S. Department of Energy and other companies that are launching new technologies. He'll be sharing about that. Chris is sought after. He's a speaker. He'll be speaking a couple times in the coming month at that level, and also has an interesting project with the National Renewable Energy Lab in REL as well that he'll come back and tell us about. So that's going to be on September 22nd. That's next week. September 29th, we're waiting on the speaker to finalize. I think that we're going to have a little bit of a preview of several different entrepreneurs or several different portfolio companies from across the world. But then October 6th, I will be in Tashkent, Uzbekistan. During that time, I'll have several people I'm going to actually interview in the evening there during your time or this time here. And looking forward to sharing with you insight from what's happening there. There are many other things that are coming. If you're interested in proposing a session, many of the Tech Ranch community members actually have access to our system for scheduling. And we really like this idea of decentralization. Remember, part of the metaphor of what I talk about that makes this community so strong is we're doing things where we're decentralizing activity So it's not just, there's like a set of values that I want us to stick to. But other than that, if you have concepts that you'd like to see happen, please propose them. And if you'd like to get involved more directly in what we're up to, we'd like to have you involved even on the scheduling system to pull these type of things together, because we're really ramping up with the start of this quarter for what's going to be happening over 2023. So with that, let's talk about Marcus Aurelius. One of the things that's been happening is there's a lot of talk about the Stoics among the startup community. And one of the values of that is quotes like this: an impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way. What's interesting about this is the reflection is something is going to be put in your path that you were not expecting, and it's kind of be a pain in the, a pain in the butt, right? And sometimes this shuts us down. Some kind of objection happens, the customer says no, or we end up having an accounting error that then becomes a nightmare, or we lose a key team member and we have to rehire someone, or something else happens. The main thing that I want you to hear from Marcus Aurelius's points is action, action. I mean, even in this quote, the word action is said twice, and I reflected on that. Actually, Chris Nielsen, when I was getting some of his information for his talk this next week, had posted this. And I know that in his case, and also in my case, since we are these entrepreneurs on these parallel paths, there's always been these blocks that have happened. Now he's got some doozies that we're going to hear about next week when he shares a story. But the main thing about it is when there is a block, that's actually part of the action. It wasn't planned for, but the main thing to do so that you don't go into crisis and so you don't go into anguish, like I have done many times in the past, where I just want to go sit down and not do anything for a little bit, is to be in action. An impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way. Be thinking about that as we talk about the things that are standing in the way. The things that are standing in the way right now, part of what we're looking at is the market that we're talking about. We're going to talk about that in just a couple of slides. So we have a new community piece of software. If you're watching this right now, and you more than likely people that are like, it's like family members are really watching what's happening in the community right now, right? We're about to open this back up. TechCrunch on its email list has around 30,000 people. So we're not going to open up the community to all 30,000. What we are going to do is, if you're listening right now and you want to get involved in the community, even before we haven't polished it and stuff like that, make sure that you tell Jello about it, and or actually just post into the chat session if you're in the session, and we'll make sure that we invite you into that. And the idea about it is, I've used the metaphor many times in the past, where I've said that if you want to take on the sharks and the whales of the world, the only way to do it is to get a school of piranha together. My metaphor is to say that loose ties, connected entrepreneurs, startups that are working with each other can do amazing things. I'm going to give you a couple different examples in a few slides about how we took on a concept for a really large corporation that, instead of the whale decided to engage the piranhas so that the whale could get open up new paths. That is, innovation has its place, but part of the way we do this is we have to be loosely tied together. So that's what this website is going to be about. We are going to get rid of Mighty Networks, and we're getting rid of Slack. And the reason is that those two applications have been hard to administer, as well as they've been somewhat difficult for certain people to get to. Some people have said, "Hey, just put together a Facebook group," but most of our European partners are actually, especially some of the cybersecurity guys, are like, "Dude, I'm not going to touch Facebook with a 10-foot pole." So sometimes, when I announce stuff about what we're doing, they're like, "You should do Facebook." Yeah, well, we have a Facebook group, and we're spooling to it, right? We're streaming to it right now. But one of the things to know is that that we're going to have this site there so you can do that. The QR code, since Jello did this QR code, Jello, where does this QR code go to?
To the Google form.
Perfect. Okay, so if you go to the Google form, there's a Google form. Instead of inundating him with emails, this is great. Go ahead and send it there, and that way we have kind of a bunch of different people to tie in. And I got a couple of questions in the chat. Slack too. It's nice at times when to chat when times are different. All the features that you have in chat on Slack, you're going to be able to do there as well. The key difference is Slack charges around $6 per user per month, and so it makes it too hard to take 300 of my closest friends, you guys, and invite you on, and then actually have the paid for version. So part of what we're doing is we're actually saying, hey, thanks Slack, you've done well for us for a while. No one ever really liked Mighty Networks. I'm now convinced, since I've been involved in the community, that I've personally been involved in the architecture of Circle. I'm like, okay, it's significantly better than what we have, so we're going to launch over to that. So fill out that form. The form's pretty basic. If there's anything else you want us to know, let us know in that form. Any specific requirements as well. When you get into the community, we don't have as many channels opened up yet, and the main reason is we kind of want to go back to a smaller set of channels to then figure out what is it that the community really wants. So if you see something missing, say something. So that's what that is. And you can see that several people haven't put their photos in, and then several have, and that's perfect. We'll get that all worked out pretty soon. So one other little advertisement, there's another companies. There are 4 different organizations underneath the Tech Ranch banner. One of them is called Venture Connections. And you've heard, if you've been paying attention to US news, there's this massive shift away from China and towards, and what I'm about to say, I don't mean in any way, shape, or form to be anti-China, but there is a shift of what's happening in supply chains towards the Americas, and also towards Europe. That is, since there's this big shift that both President Trump and President Biden have been targeting, and they've getting their checkbooks out, like with President AMLO of Mexico. Earlier this week, there was an announcement that there's going to be $28 billion that are earmarked for doing business between the United States and Mexico, and helping realign those chains. Myself and 2 other business partners, Chris Nielsen, and also a gentleman by the name of Enrique Dunhay, that you might have met. He's a long-term tech rancher. I think at least 12 years that he's been involved in the tech ranch. He became one of my business partners, and we said, as the shift was happening back in 2020, we said, we really do want to take advantage of what's happening, and let's help those jobs go to Mexico, that are getting shifted away from China. And so given the long, Tech Ranch has really deep roots. In fact, I've spoken in 23 different cities in Mexico alone, just because I absolutely love that country. I was there, 6 times in 2019 alone. Mega long story short, part of what's happening is we are helping more OEMs, like car manufacturers and stuff like that in the United States, get access to Mexico, and also other parts of the Americas. Like we have entrepreneurs that are in Costa Rica, El Salvador, Guatemala, and Honduras that have manufacturing companies that are in this network as well. If you want to participate in that, let us know. You can go to ventureconnections.info. The monthly newsletter comes out in Spanish and in English, and the one that Paloma and her team, Paloma is one of the employees of Venture Connections, just brought out, just rocks, and it actually talks all about the like as you see in that first article. This is the article from yesterday. Mexico, the solution to the North American supply chain challenges. And we have people that are standing by. There's a whole team there. This is separate from the Tech Ranch, but it's still part of the Tech Ranch family of companies. And if you are in the supply chain, let us know. The other thing that's happening that we're opening up that's even more interesting for earlier stage entrepreneurs is part of what's happening as well, is many of you have technologies that you'd like to see integrated into the supply chain. Maybe you're only able to do this much at this point, but you want to see those technologies integrated into the supply chain. Like we have some Japanese companies. There's a Japanese battery manufacturer that has like a totally new advanced battery that the world's never seen. It's going to replace lithium-ion batteries with carbon-based batteries. Totally revolutionary. The lead guy happens to be in Texas right now. He's just about to present at the RISE competition in Houston about 3:30 today. Make a long story short, those type of technologies we're also helping integrate into the supply chain. So it's kind of a twofold mission. I tell you because we haven't really announced it on this forum before, but please take advantage of it if you'd like. And if you have questions, you can ask more. Ask either in the chat or something like that. But yeah, definitely, Mexico is definitely our partner in that from the standpoint of the United States. In other countries as well, we've had companies as far off as Hungary that we've helped integrate in with suppliers in, suppliers in Hungary to OEMs in Germany. The predominance of the activity right now is between US and Mexico, but we're open to other considerations as well. So, deep breath, swig of coffee. We're going to talk about innovation. Now, I got through all my different questions there and stuff like that kind of quick. You know, I kind of talk hyperly because trying to make sure that we get things in place and stuff like that. Innovation is actually one of my favorite things to talk about. And part of it is that my background in innovation is what I did as an entrepreneur. I worked for Steve Jobs at a startup called Connext, and then I worked in, I started a couple different companies that the whole focus was nothing but innovation. Several different times in my career, I have seen these type of markets where things have gone down, right? This is the S&P 500 index. It says that the article actually says that, there's this perfect storm of activity. There's a lot of uncertainty. And in some ways, this is a perfect time to be an early stage startup entrepreneur. Right now, it's become harder to get funding. That's okay though, because there's many other opportunities that we can take on together. That in a down economy, this is when you can start seeing innovation happening. They've been, corporations, large corporations, your possible customers have been making money in the mass market, and they didn't really care. They didn't care about innovation at all. So the whole idea about this is, let's, now that they're actually having to negotiate new waters and try to evolve, some of those large corporations are going to hit the wall. Part of what's happening here is we're saying there's a way of taking in that activity and driving it. Same thing happened in 1994 when I started my first Skunkworks. My first Skunkworks was for a bank in Mexico, in Guadalajara, Mexico. We were integrating systems. I had a really advanced piece of database software that what's called a Casa de Bolsa, which is a security trading firm, bought a bank, and we integrated the two things together. What is that all about? I mean, the thing of that system that bank paid about $250,000 for ended up saving them more than $16 million that next year. And if you might remember, for those of y'all that know Mexican history, the peso crashed at the end of '94. It went from 3 pesos to $1 to 7 pesos to $1 pretty much overnight. About 48 hours, it dropped that far. And this system that we built for the bank actually helped them make around $16 million that next year, because they took a paper-based process and had it online. And it's one of the reasons that the bank survived, through that terrible time in Mexican history. This kind of launched my career as an entrepreneur, but also as an innovator. I had done some innovation kind of stuff at Next, just because we were such a new environment. But part of the thing that happened is over the years, over the last almost 20 years, there have been 4 different types of innovation that I've been involved in. And by the way, because we have a studio audience and because we have our microphones pretty much figured out today, if someone wants to interrupt, just raise your hand. I've got my screen finally set up in a way that I can see you guys and stuff like that. You know, if you do have questions, you're welcome to interrupt me. We will have a little bit of time in just a few slides so that we can have an interactive environment. I'd like to actually have you thinking about stuff that you'd like to say, hey, I've seen the following thing happen before. That would be great. That would be perfect. First off is there's 4 different types. I'm going to talk through the 4 different types that you'll see happening around TechCrunch right now. The first is called Skunkworks. Now, Skunkworks is a trademark of Lockheed Martin, and there's a whole history of that trademark. But what it was is the better example, and this is before my time on working with Steve Jobs, but the better example is what we see in the lower right of this picture. The Apple computer was there. Apple was making all sorts of money, but then Steve said, hey, we got to do something different. And he moved a group of people off to the side, and they put up the pirate flag that we see from that article in Forbes magazine all those years ago. And they said, we're going to do something radically different. We're going to do something radically different. The radical different thing that they did was they came up with the Macintosh. Now, why is this important? The Macintosh wasn't the Apple plus 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 plus. It was a radical different interaction. Skunkworks are for that. When the term Skunkworks came up, is Lockheed, the CIA went to Lockheed and said, hey, we want you to come up with a spy plane to take pictures of the Soviets. And what Lockheed said is, there's absolutely no way with existing technologies that we can do that. But if we move a few engineers off to the side, give them some money, don't talk to them, tell them, let's not have bureaucracy, not the bureaucracy, because typically bureaucracy at large corporations kills innovation. It kills innovation because, it's like, hey, don't take any risk. Don't take any risk. Just give us 3% incremental change every year. That's what most corporations are doing. Whereas the idea of building a Skunkworks is, okay, we don't care what you have to do, but don't bring us an incremental innovation. Bring us something disruptive. One of the reasons I love working with so many of you all entrepreneurs out there is you're not really working on incremental stuff. You're working on, things that are going to blow things away, totally different. Like in the studio audience, I see a whole new, Keikoa is working on a whole new way of governance among communities of people. I see Denise is there. She's got an idea about how do we help these children in these schools take on the emotional structures that they've been laden with, and actually get ahead, right? How do we, that's not incrementalism. That's like disruptive. That's like we're doing something totally different. Those kind of things can be Skunkworks. Now, many times though, there is a corporate sponsor of a Skunkworks. When I built the e-commerce engine behind Dell.com, Dell hired my first company, a company called Praxis. And part of what they did was they said, hey, we know that we don't know anything about e-commerce, and we need someone who can think radically different. And that was me. And so the e-commerce engine that produced Dell.com, and it produced the first $2 billion computers sold at Dell.com, that I started, by the way, in my living room, that was a Skunkworks. Now, you might say, why didn't you do it at the Dell offices? Because they had these really massive, beautiful offices in Round Rock, Texas. Part of the reason is when you're close to people that are in the bureaucratic system, you kind of get stuck there. Skunkworks are typically moved off to the side. They're usually moved off to the side where the people can work separate of different groups. Super secret side note, one of the things that's so powerful about having entrepreneurs around the world is we can do this every day of the week at an extremely low cost and extremely disruptive. Today, we're going to hear from 2 women from Uzbekistan. We'll have them say hi in just a little bit. And I'll be going to Uzbekistan on October 1st. You say, why do you go to Uzbekistan? Well, the best part about why going to Uzbekistan, other than getting to experience Uzbek culture and Uzbek food and Uzbek hospitality, is that by being able to tap into capability on the other side of the world, just by definition, you can build Skunkworks kind of operations, just by definition. And so people are saying, dude, you're going to be on 26 hours of flights. That's a long time. Well, the super secret side conversation that I'm having with the community is the reason we do that. The reason that having an entrepreneur in New Zealand and having an entrepreneur in Uzbekistan and having them, all over Texas and all over, other parts of the world, the value in that is we can do this type of Skunkworks capability at the drop of a hat. And now, which then draws in, sometimes we have companies that want what are called open innovation. Open innovation is, there's a company called innovate that's probably the best example of this, although I can give you personal examples as well. But if you go to innovate, you'll see that you have seekers, people who are seeking solutions for problems, and solvers, PhDs that are in their labs and stuff like that. And essentially, the seekers are saying, hey, I need to solve the following problem. I'm seeking a solution for solving the following problem. And they just post it out there. They say, here's a big thing. If you can solve this problem, it's worth this kind of bounty. And they're doing drug discovery and all sorts of other things in labs, all, really radical stuff. You never imagined that you could actually do that. That's open innovation. Open is when the need is published openly in a way that lots of people can access it. Like as an example, some of the scientists that I come in contact with in Uzbekistan will be able to say, hey, we've already solved that problem. You might remember that one of my favorite things about what we're up to in the TechRanch community is we're going to solve all the world's problems. And the part of the thing about it is to create an open innovation system where, the entrepreneur with the solution finds the market with a problem, and we just draw lines between the two, right? So again, the expression of TechRanch community is an expression of open innovation. Part of the thing to be thinking about, though, is there's lots of examples of this, and I would suggest that each one of you in your area of expertise not look just to TechRanch and the TechRanch community for this, but also to the individual organizations that have open innovation challenges that you might get involved in as well. Third thing, shopping list. This is supposed to be a shopping cart. We have examples of companies that come to TechRanch. I mean, partially because of my background and partially because of others. We have examples like General Electric is one of them. It came to us, and I can't tell you the details of the project, because it's, even though I think that the NDA is probably now finished or whatever, but I can kind of tell you the texture of what happened. GE came and said, the GE came to me through a third party and said, hey, we need to solve this following problem in fleet management. And instead of me, this is where the idea of having the TechRanch community be the solution provider. In the past, I would have put together the engineers myself. I would have put together the engineers myself. I would have done, built things out. I would have purchased or leased the space we're going to be in and stuff like that, and put all that together. But what happened here is GE came to us and said, hey, I'm not going to run the Skunkworks the way it's happened in the past. I'm going to specifically take this company, this startup, and this startup, and this startup, and we're going to put them all together and put a piece of software around what they've done, and that's going to be the solution. GE essentially came to me with a shopping list, and we were able to do that. Right now, in my back pocket, I have a number of shopping lists that corporations have given to me that, and as well, we hear from Omar Zakian just a little bit as well, that, these corporations will come to us and say, hey, we're looking for the following kind of solution. And sometimes it'll have to be built, but many times we'll be like, you know what, on the other side of this border, here in say in Mexico. I mean, I can give you really specific examples of that as well. In the case of the GE thing, there were 3 different startups, 2 of them that were physically in Austin, and one of them that was in another city that we put together for that solution. And pretty interesting stuff. At some point, there was that Skunkworks, I mean, shopping list / Skunkworks was so successful that they did TV ads about the solution, not knowing that yours truly actually put that all together. At some point, I need to get. I didn't have the time to get the video of that, but we'll share it at some point in the future. Because the thing about it is, a lot of times, you guys might not realize that your technologies are far enough along to have those kind of conversations. When it's radical innovation, early stage stuff is okay. You just have to know how to put it together. And then the final type that's really interesting right now is what I'm calling innovation fusion. I got feedback that sometimes when I'd say, hey, I just made up the following thing, people would misunderstand what I meant by made this up. Because of the network that we have, and this is not just Kevin or Omar, it's a bunch of us. Because of the network that we have, we're able to put together these networks, these solutions from many different places. There's a high net worth individual from Mexico that, although I can't disclose the business to him, it needs a certain type of legal framework to operate in. There's a congressman from Argentina that is responsible for that set of laws happening in Argentina. I was just able to recognize, hey, this technology applied there in Argentina with the following people that came from a third party will be able to produce products that are going to go to Germany. That's an innovation fusion. Or as many of you know, other stories like taking the 2 technologies out of South Australia and having them apply to take on leishmaniasis in Ethiopia. That's another innovation fusion. That was one that happened years ago. So these are the 4 things. I'll talk more about that if there are questions about that. But the main thing is just recognizing across our network, and any one of you can take advantage of the TechCrunch network and do these type of things. If you are curious about this, I think this is one of the most powerful things, especially in a down market, for us just to recognize, between insight that's in Uzbekistan and need that's in South Texas, and then technology that comes from someplace else. Here's a solution. One time, Omar and I connected entrepreneurs from Texas, Mexico, Italy, and Egypt together, and they had a substantive conversation around healthcare that then drove innovation that all 4 teams from those 4 places were able to take advantage of. That's a good example of this. All right. Was there a question? I heard something briefly. I'm not sure. Well, okay. So here, I actually, you know what? I think that part of it was there is a video that I'm going to share. I don't know if I shared my audio a while ago, so I'll make sure I stop for a second and optimize for video, and then share this. This is an example of innovation fusion. I forgot that this is partially what happened from South Australia, and well, here's something that hit the national news. That example of leishmaniasis was so popular that it hit the national news in Australia. So let's show off a little bit about that.
Where Valiants and Magners once came off the assembly line, these Flinders University inventors examined the Tonsley plant garden at a microscopic level. Through a specially designed detachable lens, the smartphone reveals secrets hidden to the naked eye. But it's upstairs where the magic happens. Through the use of 3D printed technology, the New Venture Institute is designing and making research tools which are changing the way in which diseases are diagnosed out in the field. In war zones across the world, the skin disease known as leishmaniasis causes pain and death. It's spread by sandflies in unsanitary environments, but it's easily treated if diagnosed early with one of these.
It is game changing. You know, the ability to create a new way for people to fast iterate the production of tools that will help those things is amazing.
Each kit containing 3D printed test tubes and the microscope costs about $8. When used with a smartphone, it becomes a robust diagnostic tool and a potential lifesaver, especially in war-ravaged countries. Here, young minds work across several continents to combat a scourge that can be treated if the right diagnostic tools can be made at the right price. That's where 3D printer technology comes in.
So it might take 5 or 10 minutes to do the design, another 20 minutes to do the print, and you've got a new product in half an hour.
From little things, big things grow. At a factory site where advanced manufacturing replaces one of the old drivers of the past. Ron Candelar's 7 News.
Okay, so one of the things that might be interesting to know about that is this capability of tying the old school capability of manufacturing that then was getting replaced by 3D manufacturing at that facility in New Ventures Institute. New Ventures Institute, for those of you all that heard us talk about venture bridges, about building venture bridges, you know, between one part of the world and another part of the world, this is exactly what I'm pointing to, because they had these capabilities, but they didn't know about the leishmaniasis problem in Africa. And now this is a project that the World Health Organization Africa is involved in. Now, you know, obviously it got delayed a little bit because of COVID and stuff like that, but they've now done more than 200 iterations of that set of products on the other side of the world. And that's why, you know, you're like, how did they meet? You know, how did the entrepreneurs and the scientists in Adelaide, Australia meet the the doctor who came up with the idea of how to solve it in Ethiopia? Well, they met because myself and Dr. Andrew Nerlinger, based here in Austin, Texas, had a conversation while drinking a Rhone varietal wine and connected that together. And when you realize that simple of the power, it's my favorite expression of the power of this network about what I want us to be doing together. I'll continue to do it, but it's now to the point that we're within striking distance of having many of you take advantage of the network, especially as we roll out this new community software. This, by the way, if anyone says, hey, I really wanted you to keep Slack around, or I really wanted you to keep Mighty Networks around, the place that those platforms were limiting us is why I've been like, okay, we've got to do something different. We've got to do something different about the way that we're working with our entrepreneurs, so that you guys can see this experience, not just, you know, me and Omar and, you know, Enrique and Chris, you know, can actually take advantage of this. This is the essence of why we're here, what we can do. Because just imagine with the ease of me just making a couple of connections, and quite literally, when the connections happened, I was drinking a glass of wine. It was a big wake-up call. It explained to me what the experience in Mexico back in 1994 really pointed to, that this is the thing that we can do together as entrepreneurs, early stage technology entrepreneurs from wherever they might be, whether they're in Tashkent or Yerevan or, you know, Adelaide or Santiago or any of the cities that we've gotten to interact with, can actually really have powerful outcomes. It's all a matter of looking at the technology adoption lifecycle and understanding the people that are on the left part of this, the innovators and the early adopters. They don't care what part of the world you're from. People in the early majority, late majority laggards, they might be more concerned about that sort of stuff. But people, the individuals, companies, corporations that are looking for solutions here for some distinct reason, this is the thing. This is actually where we can have impact. And by the way, all the money I ever made, since I've always been an early stage guy, all the money I ever made was right here. Then I would actually get other people to replace me, and they would take the companies into these other areas. This is the place that you have a special opportunity. This is the place you can compete And this is the place that, especially in a down market, the big corporations aren't going to go, because they're not going to be allowed to experiment. But they might hire your team to do some stuff that is possible that they couldn't take on themselves. I can tell you more about that if you'd like. Part of the thing too is just like, there's a book that I refer to a lot called Selling the Wheel. We'll spend a different time about this, because I want to make sure that I create some time for us to hear from the community that's in the audience right now. But the idea, there are 4 different types of selling that are talked about in this allegory in the book called Selling the Wheel. The whole story is, there's a guy who invents the wheel, and then he tries selling it one way and he totally fails. But then he steps back, and the person that he actually ends up being successful with is the person, like at that early stage when the technology is still kind of messy, is Cassius the closer. Cassius the closer rides in on his magical carpet, which that guy is on a magical carpet. And he says, in 2 sales meetings, he says, hey, I can do the following thing. The example in the allegory is he rides in on his magical carpet and he talks to Pharaoh, and Pharaoh is having his slaves drag rocks to build his pyramid. And he says, you know what, 60% of the time, we're going to be faster than what you're doing right now. It only works, the wheel, because it was an emerging technology, only works 60% of the time. But 60% of the time, it's going to be faster. And Pharaoh in the story says, I'm totally buying in on that. It's an option that's faster than what I'm doing right now. I need that, because if I can get my pyramids built within 60% of the time, or 60% of the time faster, very interesting. The book itself would be worthy of a whole Venture Outfitter Weekly. The main thing I point to it is, many of you haven't had experience on these type of sales, and I just want to point to a tool that could help shape your thinking about that. Okay, well, with that, the black slide is a reminder for me to take it off a share and say, hey, we have a number of people that are here. I'm just wondering if anyone has, I'd like to call on Omar first, because Omar's had some experiences in this same type of realm. And then Maftuna and Servara, I'm going to actually have y'all talking a little bit. I know we have a guy that's formerly from the Colombian government, Sebastian. Love to hear from you as well. Love to hear, some examples that you've seen. And Denise, since you've been an innovator in education, it'd be great for each one of you just to share a little bit. But Omar, kick it off. Tell us your perspective on this sort of stuff.
Sure. Yeah. Thanks. Yeah. I mean, it's important. I think, obviously, just like a lot of things in general, stagnancy and complacency, when they kind of set in, right, you don't see advancement, you don't see change, you don't see kind of breakthroughs, and you really have to have almost a deliberate action and kind of environment to establish that sort of ability to have breakthroughs, to have change, to see some sort of like kind of improvement, right? And I've seen just a variety of different kind of versions of this in different industries. Healthcare, for example, right now is one where, it's in dire need of a lot of this type of innovation, kind of thinking, right? And there is some interesting examples happening, but, I don't know if you guys recently read the news about Google raising $1 billion, right, through its healthcare company Verily, and Amazon, acquiring for $3.7 billion this company One Medical. These are all, examples of how they are looking at disrupting healthcare by, stepping to the side of what's going on in the existing market and industry, and establishing new norms, new bases, new foundations of thinking in terms of how to solve these problems, in terms of how to, provide better service and care to patients. I think it's, it's something that we have to remind ourselves with, right? And it's part of what we do here with, the entrepreneurs that we work with and support, that, we kind of constantly challenge them on these types of, ideas and thinking, to make sure that they're not, staying in this kind of complacent, or maybe just more like, consistent thinking pattern that, may not uncover these opportunities, these ways for them to be able to build more value out of what mission they have, right? That's to me part of the fun part of, again, entrepreneurship, right? This is why we do what we do, right? So that we can create new things, create new white space, create new products, new services, and yeah, I love these kinds of topics.
It's interesting because, like, yeah, this whole idea of some people like not changing, right? It's interesting. I know that Omar and I both, there's this one scene in the movie called The Matrix where they say, do you want to take the red pill, or do you want to and see how things really are? Or you want to take the blue pill and everything's fine, don't worry about anything else. And I know that I'll speak for Omar, I'll speak for myself. So every once in a while, I'm like, there's a point in the movie that one of the characters says, I really wish I had taken the blue pill, the kind of being complacent and all that sort of stuff. But the best part about it is most entrepreneurs that I've ever met that are really doing anything of note, especially for startups, they're like red pill every time. Red pill every time. Let's sign up for the change. Let's sign up for making a better world. Let's sign up for shifting things and stuff like that. So yeah, I hear that in what Omar is saying. It's also interesting to see companies like Amazon and Google make these billion-dollar investments because I think that they recognize that in healthcare, as an example, at least I'll say in the United States, the healthcare system is broken. We're spending twice as much of our GNP of any other country in the world. And we have really poor outcomes compared to, some of the developing nations for healthcare. But we're outspending them, like in some cases, 5 to 1. Certainly, all the other developed nations 2 to 1. And here we are in Texas, 50th out of 50 states. It's almost like laughable. But we're spending a lot of money. It's not that we're not spending money. So yeah, it's time to stop being complacent about that. Yeah, I think great points, Omar. Let's see. Well, let's hear from a couple other people. I mentioned to Maftuna or Savara, one of the two of you. I was using Uzbekistan as an example. One of the two of you, come off of mute and just tell us what's your perspective from the other side of the world. Say, where are you from? What's your perspective? What would you like to say about innovation that's happening on the other side of the world? Which one of the two of you would like to speak? I know that go ahead, Maftuna.
Yes, thank you very much, Kevin. It's very pleased to be here in this very exciting webinar. Yeah, we're from Uzbekistan, and my background is showing the Uzbekistan cultural heritage. Uzbekistan is the country which Margintao called the heartland, if you know. So it is in heartland. It's in center of Central Asia, and now we became 31 years of our independence just recently in September 1st, after the collapse of Soviet Union, and we are now quite kind of attractive country, I would say, in terms of technology, especially in this very challenging moment when most of the world not working with big tech guys, tech geeks from Belarus, Russia, and a little bit of challenge for Ukrainian guys. Majority of them relocated to Uzbekistan now, and Uzbekistan is opening up doors to technology and to startups. In Uzbekistan, to be honest, startup ecosystem is just developing, and we have quite interesting cases. We have quite interesting kind of focuses on venture. But very interestingly, I would say that here in USA, in Kansas City, 3 guys from Uzbekistan, they established almost unicorn called Super Dispatch, if you know. They're from Uzbekistan. And also, culturally, maybe you can explore. There is very interesting scholar in medieval period. His name is Al-Khwarizmi. So Al-Khwarizmi actually is someone who invented algorithm. So when European scientists, they kind of interpreted his book, and they told that according to Al-Khwarizmi, and it became like algorithm, like the basic of every every technology. It came from the guy who were in Uzbekistan.
So yeah, so all of y'all that in algebra that took algebra, and by the way, I loved algebra in engineering. It was, I loved it in high school. I loved it even in middle school. What we did, algebra came essentially what I understand to be true is Savara is talking about, that algebra came from there, which is fundamental to our engineering, right? It's like the type of thing that it doesn't exist if you don't have algorithms, that basic concept.
Exactly. So this is briefly about our country. It's weather-wise, it's quite moderate. You can feel all 4 seasons in very beauty of each one. We have very delicious food and fruits. So you definitely should come and explore country. But also, very interestingly, we have 3 very beautiful cities called Bukhara, Kharizm, Khiva, and Samarkand. And if you just Google it, if you see any YouTube videos on these cities, you will find the very beautiful architecture of medieval period, which is preserved still now. And when you come there, you will really feel like you kind of jump to the medieval period.
That way, it's perfect. Well, I'm personally looking forward to being there. I will be there for everyone else. I'll be there on October 1st through the 9th. And we will be doing some of, like in the days of old, we did, I would always do these days of old, before COVID. We would do these like short videos of introductions. We'll be doing introductions to kind of the culture and stuff like that. On October 6th, we'll have a specific, it'll be nighttime it'll be around 9 o'clock at night for the kickoff of this, but I'll be online and be broadcasting from there. So really looking forward to that. We'll have a little bit more stuff. Savara and Maftuna are part of a fellows program at TechRange. A lot of times we'll take on different international fellows to be a part of this, so that as we start building these venture bridges back and forth, right? Part of the way that you actually have the bridge go both directions, and not the thing I make fun of Americans every once in a while is sometimes Americans will say, hey, let's build a bridge. And they say, you come to me. Well, so I'm going there so that we can actually explore even more. There's another initiative as well that I think the community will be interested in. I've talked to one of the other people from our delegation on the ground there that was here in Austin a few weeks ago. Uzbekistan has a 1 million software developer program that, because of the great thing about the Soviet system was they had really strong science and engineering and technology technologists as part of their educational model. And so you can really tap into some really deep talent that come from that time. Now, Americans, we actually know how to market, and I think that we have like an entrepreneurship practice. So we'll be melding those together. We'll hear more from Savara, more from Maftuna, and then on my time on the ground in Uzbekistan in just a few weeks. So thank you all for being here today. And looking forward to learning more from you as we're getting prepped for that trip. So let's hop around a little bit. I know that we're getting close to the end time, but I told Kikoa that I was going to call on him real quick, and I know he has a perspective. Give us some 1 minute insight, Kikoa, about education, and not just education. Sorry, government, in the way that that this new governmental model that's emerging that you're driving in New Zealand. Can you give us some idea? I know you've got projects all around the world, but what can we learn?
Hello.
Yeah, you're off mute.
Yeah, I think just in general, what we're seeing is that the capacity of just your regular day community person is increasing, and their ability to provide solutions for their problems that they're experiencing in their own communities is becoming more something that they can solve on their own. And I think, like Innocentive is a really good example of something that can be done on a local community basis, where if you can empower your community to provide solutions for the problems that they're experiencing by giving them the resources or access to experts or access to whatever it might be that would help them get across the line. We'll see solutions that are more fitting for what people are requiring. And it really dissolves the notion of a one size shoe fits all. And that's kind of where I see it going in general. And we see this a lot in the startup world. A lot of the solutions that we see are very bespoke and specific to a very particular problem. And we see that when it solves a very specific problem, it's a huge success because it's not trying to cover all of the potentials of what might be an issue. It's just focusing on a single thing. And we find that, that's usually the case with these services that we're looking at right now. Hope that helps.
Yeah, it's interesting to see how that type of insight can solve that one particular problem. And then an entrepreneur that has access to a network to duplicate and act, other parts of the world, can take that to scale, and that scale can still be interesting. It might not be a unicorn or a decacorn, but still really, really, really interesting. So, well, I tell you what, I know that, thank you, Keikoa. I'd love to actually have one more perspective if Denise would engage with us on that specifically as well. Denise is a PhD in education, has been in education as part of our ed tech channel in our community. But she's also been, she's an entrepreneur as well, bringing her insight into education. Denise, in this subject, tell us really quick, like 2 cents about kind of how you're seeing this show up in education.
I didn't even know what a Skunkworks was, but I know now, and that's what I've been doing for this last little bit. I think teachers are entrepreneurs. The top gun teachers, the best of the best, they're also the ones that are leaving the profession because they can't do their magic. They can't do what they need to do. And I was actually thinking about how do we get them empowered to be their own, like have their own business, be their own advocate, be a consultant, whatever, be a tutor, whatever. If they will hawk their wares, then, for example, I have a teacher that I used to have work for me, is a dyslexia specialist. How many of you could use a dyslexia specialist? I mean, she's incredible. She's written her own material for kids so that she can teach the dyslexic ones. And she's hugely successful. She's retired now. She needs to be, she still needs to be working. She's still in her 50s. So that she would be able to do a little business, help tons of kids and grownups be able to navigate the world because she knows that. That's so how do we get teachers funding to pay for that idea and then get it in place? One of the places in education, you don't have access to money. When you have an idea, you don't have access to money, and you got to convince, Joe Rancher on the, sorry for that. I mean, I don't even mean to be derogatory. You have to convince somebody that's been to, I was going to say, I love ranching. You have to convince the superintendent and the school board that your idea has worth and value. And if they say, well, because they think they've been to school, so they think they know what you're talking about. They have no clue. They have no clue what it's like to be in school today. They have no clue about technology. They have no clue. But you can't come back from someplace you've never been. So how do you get the funding to the top gun teachers so that they can work their magic through the relationship with the kids? I think you have to go outside of the system. I think you have to do Skunkworks. I think you have to put people on the side and say, okay, figure this out, and then tell us what you found. I think we go through the EAP, the employee, whatever that A stands for, plan. Yes, so everybody has one. Every company, every corporation has that. They have to for the mental health. So what we're doing, you know, what I'm working with is mental health, wellness, and safety. That's pretty much it. So how do we get school districts to buy into it and give grants to teachers if they're going to do that? Thank you, Melvin. I appreciate that. How do we get people to fund the teachers? They don't need to fund the district. We need to fund the teachers so that they can work and not have to work for peanuts. They have to be able to live and survive. You know, they can't even feed themselves on retirement now. At least in the state of Texas, yeah.
Let me mention one thing real quick. So in the coming weeks, I would like to actually, and Melvin, I'm going to ask you to be the lightning rod around this, that you and Denise get together and pick one of the VO weeklies that we actually specifically target that set of conversations. I'd like to get the Teach Tappy guys as well in it, because I think they have part of the solution for how to empower the teachers that then have a market where the teacher, he or she, can actually produce onto their platform and then publish. And that, you know, and together, like the school of piranhas can take on the whale. Like, it's interesting, both what Denise is speaking to in education and Omar spoke to in healthcare. You know, two industries that absolutely have not been touched by innovation because they've been so resistant. Because, hey guys, we know what's going on. You know, they're not even paying attention to, you know, so much money is being spent, but it's not very, it's never really faced a type of competition that then drives the cost really, really, really low. And they're entrenched interests that are actually will fight you tooth and nail. I know that you've been, I mean, Denise, I know that you've been fighting the good fight on that for a long time as an individual, and then before that, as a professional in the market. Part of what I'd like to do is have Melvin, if you don't mind, put together the first Trello card around that, because I think that if we just brought the ed tech people together and published, it would be the first start. The other thing I'm going to ask is, I'm going to ask Jello, when he publishes the YouTube video, and Jello, if at all possible, get this to us today. Share a link to the time where Denise is talking about this, so that we can actually use it to open some other doors. There's a couple different educators here in town that I think would like to hear this, like a gentleman by the name of Michael Strong, who has another thread to say about this as well. I think this would be good for us to pull together. Yeah, so like there's a bunch of different things that Keikoa has said, had a similar experience in New Zealand with the education sector, and there's a few URLs. We'll make sure that those are all in the show notes, or Jello will make sure they're in the show notes. Since we've kind of gone over our time together, I want to say thank you to Denise, thank you to Savara, thank you to Matuna, and thank you to Omar, thank you Keikoa for sharing. And we'll go back into kind of our normal, well, not normal, but our close. If you want to join the community, obviously, one of the things I love about today's session is the fact that it's really visible by just the sharing that went on. You know, I talked about some innovation concepts, but now we actually practically can see individuals who are taking charge, and now this power of loose ties of the community that will emerge for driving that change. So if you would like to be a part of the community conversation around this to drive the innovation, that URL will go to a form. It's just a simple little Google form that the people that will get alpha access to the community. To be on the community, it's free. There will be a section that's going to be a paid for area called the Venture Outfitter. It's just because the paid for resources require that you know, TechRanch pays the person who does the coordination on that, but right now everything is open for free, so please take advantage of it, and you know, sign up there. If you're saying, hey Kevin, that's great, I don't know what the URL is, we will put it on. I don't think Jello's gotten a chance to put this URL on this one yet, but we will put a sign up here to join the community on this Connect URL. Right now, if you go to this Connect URL, you'll see access to our newsletter, access to sign up as a as a country manager, where there's approval process on that. We'll have the access to the community or this community forum on that as well, because I think we're doing important work. And part of what I think you can start to feel, especially when we hear from someone that is from Tashkent, and then we've got the world surrounded. It's just a matter of doing our work. We've got access to in our studio audience alone, obviously a lot of Texas, some Mexico, access to Egypt, access to Uzbekistan, access to New Zealand, access to the Philippines. It's interesting, for how we might be able to poke some holes in some of these industries that are in desperate need of innovation. So sign up there. Jello, by the way, I forgot to tell you, will you put the community forum on there as well? Thank you. Sorry that it's coming late. With that, what we'll do is we'll say our goodbyes for today. It's always an honor to be a part of a community of entrepreneurs that are driven by vision and values, and wrapping our arms around the whole world. Let's go change the world for the better together. With that, y'all take care. Have an awesome day, awesome evening.